Joining me now on the Knicks Film School Podcast. I have had nothing but positive experiences with people from The Athletic, despite Vorkunov, being a little dicey from time to time. Maybe we could get into Vork if we have some extra time. But I'm a massive fan of this person's work. He covers the Wizards for The Athletic. He also has a podcast about the Wizards, host of Wizards After Dark, which, given how the Wizards are doing this season, I'm not sure, have they been out of the dark or are they perpetually in the dark? We'll have to find out. Fred Katz, thank you for coming on the show. How are you, man?
Yeah, I'm good. Hopefully I can continue that string of impressing from The Athletic.
You're off to a great start already as you're backing up this audio. So Vork never offered to do that. So
Vork is, he's not a guy who would do that. He's not a stand-up guy.
No. He complains a lot. Let's just say that. Shout out to Vork. He's one of my favorite guests. So you were kind enough to come on here because the New York Knickerbockers, who are usually perpetually bad, as the Wizards are this season, are playing the Wizards in a few days. And I thought it might be fun to talk maybe a little bit about the game, but mostly some of the surrounding stuff with the Wizards, because I think they're one of the more fascinating stories in the league, just because of the uncertainty surrounding them. Before we get there, though, I always like to do this from your perspective. Obviously, you don't watch the Knicks every day. I know you pay attention to them just like you do the other teams. What is your view of what they have been doing this season, and just like kind of a big picture? Like when I think of the Knicks, I think of what this year?
Well, I talk about the Knicks more than you might think because I'm from New York, and all my childhood friends are huge Knicks fans. And it's a common topic on the group chat that we're always on. So I think about the Knicks more than any human being probably should who doesn't have any sort of relationship with the Knicks whatsoever. What do I think about the Knicks this year? Quickly is fun as hell. Dude scores like a maniac. They are better than I thought they'd be. They're really feisty defensively. What are they, 6th or 7th in defensive efficiency right now?
I check it every day. They're 6th as of right now.
They're 6th in defensive efficiency. We're recording this on Wednesday afternoon, and the New York Knicks are 6th in defensive efficiency. I didn't see that coming.
What a world.
They're feisty. They play hard. Austin Rivers trash talks way more than Austin Rivers should trash talk, and yet I somehow feel like he should be trash talking even more. It's the great Austin Rivers trash talk paradox. They're actually fun to watch for a team. Normally, if you get a sub 500 team that doesn't give up a lot of points and doesn't score a lot of points, they're pretty unfun. But they're pretty fun because they're feisty, and I like Mitchell Robinson a lot, and they're well coached too. Tibbs is doing a good job.
I'm happy it's a good point to end on, because a lot of people right now, there's some consternation about, it's my go-to word when I talk about this, over Thibodeau and some of the rotation or substitution patterns. I'm like you. I just think he's got the guys playing hard, and that's pretty good. Moving over to Washington, it has been an interesting year, to say the least. I just wanted, before we even get to the team, what has it been like covering between? So you had the Wall trade, then you had the season start off the way it did. The Beal stuff is perpetually hanging over it. You guys didn't play for, what was it, like a week or so?
2 weeks, 13
2
weeks.
Weeks, excuse me. What has this year been like for you, just from like a media perspective?
It's been really weird. And on top of it all, I'm not at the games. I'm not in the locker rooms. So it's just completely different because of COVID. I mean, normally I'm at least sitting there close to the floor. I'm in the locker room before and after the game. I'm in the concourses talking to random people, and I'm on the road with the team and all those sorts of things. And this year, I'm just sitting in my living room, not going to games. I'm not doing anything that any other human being would consider active. I'm just sitting around on the lazy boy and watching the Wizards, which is an incredible way to go through existence. And they've had so many strange tropes this year. There's the Wall trade rumors, and then the actual Wall trade, and then it's, oh crap, it's Wall for Westbrook, and then Westbrook's coming in, and then Westbrook's going to change the culture, and there's the Beal stuff, which has been, like you said, hanging over them for the entire season and will continue to be a narrative no matter how many times people who are in the know say they don't want to trade Beal, or other teams who are calling them up about Beal keep hearing that the Wizards don't want to trade him. It will continue to be a narrative until Bradley Beal, either gets traded or leaves in free agency or re-signs with them or signs an extension or whatever.
Yeah,
like as long as
happen.
Exactly. As long as he is on this contract with this team that's 6-15, he will be the guy who everybody talks about as a possible trade. That is how the NBA works. And it's not just a media narrative. People around the league talk about it too. And then of course they had more than half the roster in the health and safety protocols. Yeah. They had to miss 13 days when 6 postponed games. When they came back, they still had just about half of their roster, which they were playing with for the first 3 games back until they started to get everybody back. So
Isaac Bonga, baby. It's Bonga time.
So it's been such an unbelievably weird season. Westbrook looks great one night, looks old or hurt the second night. Just an unbelievably weird season.
So you brought up the record 6-15 and the Beal rumors, which obviously I want to touch on. This feels like a chicken or the egg thing. Did the aura of the Beal thing influence this season? Do you think it was the season started to increase the rumors? Is it somewhere in between? Like where are you at with this?
I think the season increased the rumors. I think if they were playing really well, it wouldn't be out there. I also think the rumors have a lot to do with projection, because it's just kind of like we look at a guy, Beal's a free agent in 2 years, and we look at a guy who's leading the league in scoring, who is averaging 30 a game for the second year in a row. And we say, okay, the team was 25-47 last year. They are 6-15 this year, and they have the second worst record in the Eastern Conference. It's not like they have some prominent young stud who looks like he could be a future All-NBA player. They've got some nice young players, but it's not like Denny Avdija is held in the same stratosphere as Zion Williamson or anything like that. So you look at the roster and you say, okay, how are they realistically going to get better quick enough to keep that guy, to make him want to stay? Because historically, in recent history, you look at the NBA and you got a guy who's a super scorer on a team like that and who is an All-NBA contender and possibly an All-NBA guy this year in Bradley Beal. And you think, why is that guy going to stay in the losing situation? Because it never happens. The guy always ends up leaving for whatever, you get an Anthony Davis situation at some point, even if it's not that contentious. That being said, I have not heard that. I mean, I reported at The Athletic, when would it have been?
Oh, it was a couple days.
5 days ago?
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know. Time doesn't exist anymore.
No, there's no.
Might have been 5 days ago. Might have been 5 years ago. Can't really confirm either one. Whenever I reported it recently enough that it's still true today, that the Wizards have gotten no indication from Bradley Beal that he wants to be traded. And when teams call up the Wizards just aren't engaging in those talks. They don't want to trade Beal. They've contended they want to build around Beal. And it's not just them holding on to him and saying, we think we can be good with him in the next year. They think they have a legitimate chance at holding on to him and really keeping him. And, it remains to be seen if that's going to happen or not going to happen, or if circumstances change by the deadline or after the season or whatever. But for now, I don't think anything is imminent.
I'm going to do the thing which every person who covers teams just loves, which I'm going to ask you to absolutely guess and put yourself out there. If you had to wager a guess as to, okay, let's say Beal changes his mind or the Wizards change it or whatever, the situation changes. How much, and I ask this as the person who covers a team that not many players have wanted to come to over the last several years, at least, how much agency do you think he will have in that process in directing where he ends up next? Or do you think the Wizards are just going to be like, look, we're going to get the best package we can? We're again, asking you to guess, where would you see that heading?
I think he would probably have a good amount, because he's only got at most a year and a half left if something like that were to happen, and at that point, let's say Beal goes to them and says he doesn't want to be with the Wizards anymore after this season or something. Let's say he does that. He's only got one more year till he can become a free agent. So now all of a sudden, this is the Paul George, Indiana situation, where, yeah, maybe a dark horse like OKC comes out of nowhere and makes the trade. Maybe. But usually Anthony Davis ends up in LA.
Yep.
James Harden ends up in Brooklyn.
Yep.
Usually that's what ends up happening. And Harden had basically 2 full years left too. And the reason why is because a team like, let's say, New Orleans.
Just New Orleans is out there.
Well, New Orleans is intriguing because they have all of those draft picks, and they're not amazing picks because they're Milwaukee's picks, but they have a lot of draft picks, and they have good young players, and
the Lakers picks.
And the Lakers picks, true, right?
Also not amazing.
Also not amazing picks. I mean, might literally be the finals matchup this year, but still, they have a lot of picks. They could offer a lot of picks. Yeah. In terms of just sheer number, and then maybe you get lucky or something because LeBron decides he wants to retire, even though he's going to play until he's 92 years old. But let's say New Orleans or Atlanta or something like that, where they can make a real offer for him. Yeah. But Beal just gives him a heads up. I probably wouldn't resign because their teams are going to do their homework. They're not going to make that deal having no idea whether the guy will resign, probably. And, now, all of a sudden, New Orleans, Atlanta, whomever else, Denver, like me, if Denver finds out, Beal doesn't want to play in Denver, he'll come in, he'll play for you for a year, and then he's going elsewhere because that's what happened with Paul George with some teams. Everybody thought he was going to L.A.
Yeah.
And so teams just pulled out. Why is Denver going to give up Michael Porter Jr. if Beal wants to be there for 1 year? Why is New Orleans going to give up, 973 picks if he's only going to be there for 1 year, and so on and so forth? So I think any really good player who has 1 year, 1.5 years left has a pretty good amount of agency just by the sheer circumstances.
That makes perfect sense. I may have missed it over the last several years, but has there ever been a report that people are saying Beal could maybe someday want to end up in place X? I mean, has there been any of that?
The only reports have been Bradley Beal saying flat out on the record he wants to retire with the Wizards.
Yeah, that's
the only thing.
That
is the only thing he said to me. I've written, and I had this in this piece that I wrote last week, but he said to me he doesn't like super teams. He doesn't like the super team culture, and he said that to me. That was a while ago. He said that to me. That was about 2 years ago that he said that to me. So look, things change. But he has said to me he doesn't like the super team culture. He's a little old school. He's a little more like the Damian Lillard mold, where Lillard just said, or Giannis, obviously. Giannis decided to stay in Milwaukee. He's a little bit more in that mold. And I'm not saying that means that he's definitely going to stay, because the difference is Giannis stayed when his team is winning 60 games every year. And is contending at least for going to the finals.
And he also made the Holiday trade before he officially put pen to paper. So we should note that.
Totally. Yeah. But they were also really good before the Holiday trade.
Yeah.
They had the best record in the East last year, and they didn't make the finals, and everybody considers that a disappointment, which is fair, but that's not the level the Wizards are at. And Portland has made one conference final. But they're consistently in the playoff picture. I mean, the Wizards right now are at a different, they're just in a different league. Which is why the talk comes.
Yeah, because Portland, we've heard during, especially when they got, I think, swept in the first round of the playoffs, was it 2-3 years ago? After they started off well the next year, we heard all the reporting about the culture and this and that. Like any other organization would have folded, but they kept it together. Do you think this Wizards situation has a chance of actually pulling through whatever it's 6-15, or where do you see this season going for Washington?
Well, to me, the difference, if you're going to compare it to Portland, the difference is Portland got swept by New Orleans. Drew Holiday killed him in that series.
Yep.
He killed Lillard specifically in that series. And Lillard came back. He had a great year. They go to the conference finals that year. Difference is they were building on a playoff season.
Yeah.
They weren't. It's not like they were embarrassed because they went 17-65. They were building on a playoff season, whereas this Wizards team kind of just has to overcome its own basketball deficiencies. I mean, the issues with the Wizards are basketball issues. They are the fact that they're consistently in the bottom 3 or 4 on defense.
Yeah.
I mean, they're basically the Bizarro Knicks. We're talking about a lot of defense, and
except the offense is what are they, like 18th or 19th in offense?
Now they're like 20th in offense, I think,
which is crazy.
The 18th.
Yeah.
They're capable of being higher than that.
Sure.
They have some serious bust out offensive potential. Losing Thomas Bryant really hurt them.
I like him.
Yeah, he was having such a good offensive season. He's really gotten better. I mean, he's just wildly efficient. He's become a really good 3-point shooter. And so now you've got this 6'11" center who has shot literally 75+% 2 years in a row in the restricted area and is now shooting 40% on threes. And it's just outrageous how efficient he can become. Like, he could be a 65 to 70% effective field goal or true shooting guy in his career.
Which, when you add to a Beal and a Westbrook, in theory, that's a nice little.
Yes. And he was doing great. I mean, defensively, you know, he struggles defensively too. Yeah. Basically everybody on that roster struggles defensively, but in terms of just like being an offensive juggernaut, he's the perfect guy for them. He's a pick and roll guy. He's a pick and pop guy. He doesn't post up. He doesn't handle the ball. He's just like going to be high energy. He's going to get the energy buckets. He's going to cut. He's really good running in transition. Like, that's how he's going to get his points. It's going to be on dump offs. It's going to be on catch and shoots. Like, he's perfect for Beal Westbrook. I think losing him hurt their offense a good amount. Davis Bertans is not hitting his threes. That's the other big thing.
I was going to ask you about that. That's just weird. That guy was as automatic as anyone. And
yeah, I mean, he came into the season admittedly not in the shape that he should have been. He showed up about 2 or so weeks late to training camp because he had visa issues getting back into the country. And on top of that, he admittedly did not play 5-on-5 for months leading into the season. And so he was totally out of shape, and then working his way back in, and he started the preseason, then into the regular season on a minutes restriction. And then by the time he starts to kind of come back, he hit 6 threes against Phoenix, and then he's one of the guys who goes into the health and safety protocols. And now all of a sudden he's out for like 2.5 weeks, stuck in the health and safety protocols. And it's like, you know, the returns that he had made throughout the season just kind of all got wiped out. And now he's kind of starting again. He's hitting 33% of his threes, which is like,
Derrick Rose territory, baby.
He's got Knicks great Derrick Rose. Tom Thibodeau great Derrick Rose.
Yes, third time's a charm.
He's got to, like, he has to hit 40 to 42, 43% in order to be as effective as he's supposed to be, given just what the expectations were for him. I mean, he literally had one of the best shooting seasons of all time last year. That was amazing. Not hyperbole.
No, like, with the
one
volume,
of the best of all time.
It was insane. I think I picked them to finish 6th in the East, and because I thought all the things that you're saying now, like, this is going to work. They're going to score enough to make a difference. Last thing, and then I know you got to get out of here. Russell Westbrook. Maybe this is an unfair question to ask.
That sound effect was your question, right?
Do you think they have serious buyer's remorse? Do you think they have a little bit of buyer's remorse? Do you think they have any buyer's remorse?
I don't think the buyer's remorse is here yet. That's the other part of the offense, by the way. I don't think the buyer's remorse is there yet because he's been dealing with a quad injury. When you talk to them, they talk about how he's just fighting back from the quad. And he's had moments like that Nets game a week and a half ago where they win 149-146. And Westbrook
he was great. I watched most of that game. It's good. Great game.
And he was spectacular. And it wasn't just that he played well, it was how he played.
Yep.
The way Westbrook, I think more so, and I covered him in OKC too. So I have seen a lot of Russell Westbrook basketball in my life. Most of it's spectacular. And Westbrook, I think more than any other Hall of Famer of his generation, he plays well, not depending on what he's doing. It's more on how he's playing stylistically. And on nights where he's just going to rely on the jumpers, it's probably not going to be there for him. On nights where he is just forcing his way to the hole, he's probably going to play great. And that Nets game, he took 19 shots in the paint. I think it was 18 or 19 shots in the paint, which is a ridiculous number for a point guard. I mean,
it's a good number for a team.
Yeah. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah.
And if you watch that game, it was apparent. Like, the reason I looked that up, because I was like, good Lord, he is attacking like this is 2015 Westbrook, with the way he was grabbing defensive rebounds, going the length of the floor, finishing over Durant on multiple occasions in the final minute of regulation, and just attacking. And he hasn't been doing that this year. And I don't know how much of it has to do with the fact that he's 32. He doesn't play on both halves of back-to-backs anymore. Mm-hmm. He's just, when guys get older, they lose athleticism. I don't know how much of it has to do with that and how much of it has to do with the quad. And I can't quite figure it out. If you ask Wizards people, they say it's the quad. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with the buyer's remorse. But he goes in and out. Like he looks better now than he did at the start of the year, which makes me think it's totally possible that it is just the quad, because he sat for about, I think it was 16 days between games and looked better when he came back. He really looked better. And so maybe it is the quad. He had a really nice game against Atlanta, and he had that great game against Brooklyn. But again, it goes in and out. He's had games where he stretches where he's had like 40 field goal attempts over a stretch, and like 5 or 6 of them are layups or dunks, and the rest are jumpers. And it's like, that's not Russell Westbrook. I know people say like you take the good and the bad with Westbrook, but that's not Westbrook. That's too extreme.
It's too bad. And meanwhile, all I'm hearing is that he's going to look at Elfrid Payton like a juicy piece of meat coming up. Well, we'll see. This has been a lot of fun. We got to do this again sometime. Fred Katz, can you please just quickly tell the folks at home where they could find you and your stuff?
Yeah, you can find my stuff over at theathletic.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Fred Katz, FredKatz. You can subscribe to my podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, Wizards After Dark. Yeah, that's it. Subscribe to The Athletic.
I always do an extensive athletic plug when Vork is on. I'll do one here. You could read more than just Vork on The Athletic. You can read Fred Katz. You can read all about other NBA teams. It's like, and you always have a special going. What I really want is more Twitter banter between you and Vork, though. That's what I personally need in my life. So if you could, get up on that.
You should see our text thread. There's plenty of banter.
You probably wouldn't want that to get out if I had to guess. Thank you so much, Fred.